Hey everybody, welcome back to Giant Talk, the world's first OKR podcast. Hope you're all safe and well. Might have started to return back to your offices and things now. Maybe a little bit of normality starting to creep in. So if you're doing that, I hope that's all going well for you. This week, I'm delighted to have Chris James from Scaled Agile Inc. joining me. Welcome to the podcast, Chris.
Thank you, Lawrence. Yeah, I'm delighted to be here. It's a great topic and very interested to participate.
Fantastic. So we're going to be talking today really about how you can go through the process of sort of inspecting and adapting your OKRs during your quarterly reviews and things like that, which is a practice that Chris is really well versed in at Scaled Agile Inc. But first, Chris, tell us a little bit about your background, what you do at Scaled Agile and also what Scaled Agile do in the first place.
Yeah, thank you, Lawrence. So I'm originally from Wales. I spent my formative years there and then jumped into big IT. I worked at Digital Equipment Corporation and Sun Microsystems, Oracle. And during that time, I also transitioned to live in the States here. I'm based here in Boulder, Colorado. And towards the end of my career, I transitioned into an agile context. I worked at Rally Software, one of the leading ALM tools, application lifecycle management tools that is used around the world, and then joined Scaled Agile Inc., which was founded by Dean Leffingwell, and they produce the product SAFe, Scaled Agile Framework, and this is the leading framework for bringing lean agile practices across the major organizations, the Global 2000, who are looking to scale lean agile practices, the agile practices that came out of the Agile Manifesto, and take those broadly across their organization to achieve business agility and implement a digital business approach. So I'm CEO, and I have a team here. Well, we have a global team of about 140 people around the world, and we use SAFe to operate the company as well.
Okay, so you use SAFe alongside OKRs, do you?
Yeah, SAFe embraced OKRs as part of its proven practices. SAFe is actually built on is a harvest of good practices around the world that we've used or seen used or are emerging better practice for scaling agility, and OKRs. We're part of that. You know the history of OKRs, and they're a proven way of helping teams focus their work and gain alignment, and they are part of SAFe, one of the practices adopted by SAFe.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. So when did you first come across OKRs then? When did you start to make them part of SAFe?
Well, I first came across OKRs as I worked at Sun Microsystems
right.
In the 80s. Silicon Valley, the story well, and I'm sure your listeners do around OKRs. And Sun Microsystems had adopted them. And in different business units, we were using them to create alignment within our teams. So I personally have had some history over the years using them, and then KPIs and OKRs have really been explicit in the SAFe big picture or the practices of SAFe. At least for the past 3 or 4 years.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting then. You must have been one of the first people really visible in the OKR space then, to be using them at Sun back in the 80s. That's awesome. They've certainly come a long way since then, I know that. And it's amazing that, however long later, 30, 40 years later, they're really starting to pick up steam now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and I think I like the quote from Stephen Bungay. The more alignment you have, the more autonomy you can grant. And I think OKRs help with that alignment.
100%.
and this demand that is, coming, for people to have more autonomy around the way that they work and how they work towards particular goals. And so I think OKRs have their moment. As we've all dispersed to work at home during this current context, there's never been a greater need for alignment because we're dispersed. We're all working, in our bedrooms and our basement offices, and having aligned OKRs has been for us, for example, has been very, very important because we could continue working and producing value with a high degree of alignment.
I think you've absolutely hit the nail on the head there. All the businesses who were well versed in something like OKRs when they came into this crisis period have almost been able to carry on, business as normal for their employees, as long as, within reason, things haven't been impacted too much in terms of their actual revenue generation. But you can really tell the difference between those businesses and the ones who didn't have any sort of alignment principles in place coming out the back of the crisis, can't you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There are these two camps. There are those that, obviously, as you say, it was difficult, particularly as there was disruption on the supply side and the demand side. It was disruption. But if you had OKRs, at least your teams knew what work needed to be done. And then on the other side, those that didn't really have good alignment, they had a period of chaos and actually had to really bring their teams back together and really start that work of alignment. So I agree with you. I've seen that with different customer sets where they had this sort of chaotic start as they tried to achieve alignment.
Yeah, I kind of hope that this period can be a bit of a catalyst, really, for those companies that didn't have it, in terms of a realization that they need it, because I think the demand for flexible working is only going to increase. Now people have proven that it can be done in pretty much any industry because people have had no choice. So I think it's time for everyone else to sort of jump on the bandwagon as well now, really.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that underpins that is that the technology to allow distributed teams to work and for people to work independently and then come together, enabled by technology as we are right now, coming together with Zoom, for example.
Exactly.
The technology is there to support it. You also need the working practices like OKRs to help you align and be effective.
Absolutely, completely agree. So I know you mentioned in our research call that you think a really important aspect of OKRs is about inspecting and adapting the OKRs within quarterly reviews. Do you want to just explain a little bit more to listeners what you mean by that?
Yeah, and so a basis of lean agile working is relentless improvement, and I think this is a key aspect. Often, you within a team, you'll have people who feel things are either right or they're wrong. It's binary, and I always coach my teams that really we're talking about relentless improvement. We have to have a view that the way that we're working today, the way that we are measuring today will change. We've just had this black swan event right now, and that has changed the way we view the world and what is more important. And so you have to have a mindset of relentless improvement. You have to be comfortable with the fact that the way that we do things today will change over time. And having a view of relentless improvement and having a view that you need to improve the way you measure and the way you work always, and choosing the most impactful things to improve on a regular cadence is an important way of working in an agile context.
Completely agree. And do you advocate that happens at an individual level or a team level or a combination of the two?
Well, the way that we practice it, we have the two. Well, we do have the three levels. but professional development and personal development is an important aspect, and we do encourage that sort of personal introspection about how individuals can operate better in a team context, in an organizational context. So when we think about inspecting adapting, we also give time for personal introspection as well. We give time for teams to reflect. How are we working as a team? And for us, an agile team is 7 ±2, and we have about 20 teams altogether. And so we give those teams time to reflect and choose items to work on as a team to improve the operation of the team and the workflow in the team. And then as an organization, we used to take 3 or 4 things to improve in a quarterly planning cycle. And I really have learned over the years that you can only really focus on one organizational improvement area.
Right.
The smaller the batch, the better. So I try to keep the team down to one improvement area at an organizational level.
Per quarter?
Yes.
That's really interesting. So does the OKR process get brought up at all in that?
It is, because it guides, one of the indicators that you're doing well is your key results. So it will point to the areas of concern, areas that aren't working as well as they should be. So they're an early, or one of the indicators that we're having difficulties in particular areas and need to think about improvement.
That's really interesting. And I know you mentioned as well to Jill when she was speaking to you that one of those key questions that you're asking across the entire organization is, what is it that's actually going to stop us achieving our objectives? And I guess that's part of that early indication system as well. How do you break that down?
Well, impediments are really important. In my role as CEO and my team of leaders, one of our key roles is to remove impediments that are stopping teams achieving their key outcomes. So we look for those impediments, and we ask teams to surface those impediments. And it's actually a difficult area, because the more autonomy you give individuals, the more autonomy you give to teams, the less likely they are to escalate. The idea of escalating someone, to a higher authority becomes a difficult concept for them. No, we solve our own problems. We have relentless improvement, and I use different language now. I talk about elevating impediments and sharing impediments. Right. Is not an admission that you can't fix things yourself.
Sure.
It's actually a good way to share what's going on in the company and give visibility to things that could be improved.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting you say that, because one of the first questions we actually ask when starting off an OKR consultancy piece of work with a new client is, what within the organization is going to stop OKRs working for you? And I think that's an important thing to recognize as well. Yeah.
The cultural acceptance. I mean, as you know, change depends a lot on the culture and the leadership style. And that you really need to identify that, because you don't, OKRs and a way of working that empowers people can really be disabled by the culture or the leadership style. So you really need to think about that as you implement.
Couldn't agree more.
So I love how Koan is designed with the team in mind. The team is really at the centre of the system, and it's about helping the team and the members of those teams, obviously, to really collaborate on how they work with OKRs. I mean, there's obviously full transparency across the system, which helps. And then the features that they have around feedback and being able to track levels of confidence and so on and so forth around and progress against OKRs. It's amazing, and because of that level of transparency, it builds accountability and fosters some great communication. So, yeah, I love how teams are just at the centre of the system.
So once these things have been escalated, up the ladder a little bit, then what steps do you put in place to resolve them?
Well, you really need to. I always, the best way to do this is the people closest to the work.
Yeah.
They really have the insights you need to improve. So you need generally a cross-functional team of the people who are closest to the issue that is the impediment. And so we try to get representatives with the passion and the knowledge and the insight closest to the issue to come together and work through with some of the sort of problem solving techniques like the fishbone approach and really think through what is the sort of really causing that issue and then work to see if we can resolve it.
What I really like there is that you mentioned right at the beginning that it's going to be a cross-functional team of people. You're not just making this one department's problem that everyone else is relying on.
Yeah, because that's generally, if the team can fix it, they will.
Yeah.
Knowledge workers, they working in a team, they generally know how to fix those type of things. The issues are the ones that have boundary work, where they don't have that immediate ability to make the changes. So yeah, cross-functional is critical.
Yeah, couldn't agree more on that as well. That's a really valid point. So what if it's then that's the processes that are supporting the objectives that are failing? Is it a similar kind of remedy, putting together a cross-functional team to sort of diagnose what the problem is? How do you approach that?
Yeah, well, we're lucky in that we work using the Scaled Agile framework SAFe, and that gives us a set of working practices around coming off the business context, the value streams that we're working, because we're really pushing the movement from projects to product,
right,
to value, continuous release of value. And so we have processes that support that. And so those are continually evolving as we practice and we learn better ways of doing things. So we have a framework that helps us particularly called SAFe, because we work in that way, and that generally gives us the guidance and the approach that we need. And so what we're really talking about then is the flow, the impediments to the flow of value, and how we can speed that up or just make them more effective.
Fab. Yeah, I really like that concept, because really at the end of the day, everybody should be looking to, focus on value really at the end of the day, shouldn't they? Whether it's for peers or clients or themselves, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. For us, delivering value to our customers is the focus, and measuring that value and how we're doing it to deliver that value is as perceived by the customer and not necessarily for us. And so this movement away from having this project with a set time that people are all associated with, that had fixed requirements right at the beginning, is just not the way of working. There's so much uncertainty and change, particularly now, but even pre-COVID, with the speed of technology change, the demographic changes, the economic context, you have to have agility as part of your organizational infrastructure. And so you need to be able to assimilate these changes quickly, and have your practices and your working practices support that.
Absolutely.
So agility is just the way that we work.
So who sets the OKRs in your business then? Is it a top-down thing or, blended?
Yeah, it is an iterative process for us to sort of agree what work we're going to do in the next quarter. We run off a three, we have a sort of vision and mission approach that changes every 2 or 3 years, and then at least annually, and then I edit it at a quarterly level. We have a business context.
Right.
So my business context coming into January was one of growth, international expansion, and really, how we would achieve that. But as we came into planning then in 3 months later, in April, obviously it was a different context. It was one of how do we help our customers who have moved to this distributed working context, working at home, individuals dispersed, right across, a country or the world in many cases. How do we support them to do that? So we had a different business context. So it was key. My role as CEO was to make sure people understood how we were viewing that business context and to adapt their work to support that.
That's an interesting little segue point for me there. So how do you keep those teams and your personnel engaged, and how do you onboard them onto that new direction for the business, as it were?
Well, there's a couple of things that we hold dear, which is if you're going to ask people to work in a new way, you really have to train them in that new way. And adult learners absolutely will really embrace a new way of working if they can be trained and they can see how it impacts the value that they can have, and they actually practice it immediately they've been trained. We've moved away from that sort of train people just in case they do things to you need to train people just in time. They need to be practicing it almost immediately so that they can, assimilate it and internalize it. So training for us is really important. And then constant reinforcement as a team of this way of working. I remember when I was at Sun Microsystems and we adopted Six Sigma. We were having some quality issues in the development of some of our product, and we embraced Six Sigma across the organization. But there wasn't, in my experiences, working in a business unit at that point in Sun Micro, there wasn't enough setting of the business context. There wasn't enough reinforcement of Six Sigma as our preferred way of working. There were deliverables we had that we were half bought into that we should produce and how we would improve particular processes, but we really didn't have the overall business context. We didn't have that quarterly top-up and editing of that context as things changed. So I think it's really important that team members and organizational business units really understand the business context, because people want to help companies achieve. They come to work to deliver value and help their company achieve. And the more that you can create that alignment through understanding the business context, I think it's just a better way of working.
Yeah, I think you've struck a really important point there about keeping the business context front of mind at pretty much all times for people, because I think leadership teams in particular, in my experience, have a habit of spending hours and hours and hours, if not days, and weeks, talking through their strategy into the most finite detail possible, and kind of forgetting that the rest of the organization hasn't been a part of those conversations, and then unleashing a whole new strategy or a whole new direction or a whole new system of working without filling in the blanks. And it's so important that you avoid doing that.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. The internalization that happens with those leaders as they talk through and edit their view of the world. I mean, they go through a change process and an argument process and an engagement process, and then you really got to think about, well, how do we take our teams through that process?
Yeah. How
do we communicate that? One of the things I'm fixated on right now is what we call 8x8 communications.
Right.
That's eight different times, 8 different ways. I've grown up in a world in big IT that your senior staff turn up with their 20 slides. They go through your 20 slides, and that's the communication of the strategy.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, because sometimes they don't even do that. You might get a set of slides in your email.
Yes.
And what I have found that's just one of the first of the 8 ways that you need to really communicate before people internalize it.
Yeah.
So I push my whole organization around 8x8 communications. Think about 8 different ways, 8 different times to communicate. There's never been a more important time to over-communicate either strategy or changes or what's happening in an organization.
Absolutely. And that's something that we've touched on a couple of different podcasts and webinars, just how important transparency and communication is in this current period, but also moving forwards.
Yeah. I think, one of my team members said to me yesterday, because we can't do a sort of meet and greet of new hires. I have people who join in January, February, and early March who join the company, and I've never really met them. So we've been doing some coffee mornings and different things to sort of simulate that sort of personal meeting. And one of the things they said to me about coming into our company right now was the transparency. And I think transparency builds trust and it builds understanding and alignment. So I agree with you. Transparency is a huge asset for companies to engage their teams.
Yeah, completely. Chris, it's been really interesting. Thank you. If I could just ask one more question, which the listeners will be used to be always ending on. If you had one piece of advice that you could give to a business leader sort of about to jump in with OKRs and agile working, what would that be?
It's a very good question. I knew that question was coming, and I had actually written down transparency.
Yeah, I did wonder if you might have.
Yeah, we just covered that. I think, don't expect it to work straight away. The concept of relentless improvement is one you need to be comfortable with. It's not going to be a binary context, We're not doing them, and we're doing them really well. It's going to be a period of assimilation and understanding and internalization by individuals, teams, and the organization. And you have to be comfortable with a growing capability to apply OKRs and create the change and the focus on value and alignment that you need. So I would just say, be comfortable with the fact that you're going to have to relentlessly improve them, relentlessly improve how the team operates with them. And that's just the way of the world. It's not that you didn't do it right. It's just the way things work. They move gradually from not doing them to doing them well, but it's over a period of time with improvement.
Yeah, and I think it's well worth remembering as well that your business changes and the world changes around you, right? And so the processes have to keep on evolving to meet that new world and that new business practice.
Yeah, I think that's key, because business agility, we say it as if it's, easy. It's actually those type of practices of accepting of change, expecting change, and then building your practices to support change.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us. That's been a fascinating discussion.
Well, thank you, Lawrence, and best wishes. It's a great series of podcasts that you're running and in an important area. So thank you.
Thank you. And as always, guys, I hope you enjoyed the chat. Make sure you leave us a review where you can on whatever platform you listen to us on. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the bonus content that's now available in the podcast description. And if you have any questions, just shoot us an email. It's just lawrence@therebegiants.com. We're always happy to chat to you. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and we'll see you for the next episode of Giant Talk. Thanks, everybody. Bye.